May I have your attention, please? Would you please stand? And I'm going to ask if Commissioner Farrellbeck, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I thank the Commission. You may be seated. Welcome, everyone. We like to kind of reacquaint ourselves always, although most of us know one another. It still is helpful to sort of go around the room. I'm going to ask the esteemed Vice Chair of the Commission, Jeff Benson, to say who he is, and then we're going to go down the line, please.
I'm Jeff Benson from the Beverly Shores Town Council.
I'm Diane Knoll, Character Town Council.
Dusty Keel with Cross Town Council.
Greg Stinson, Porter Town Council.
Jim Biggs, Porter County Commission.
Dan Gutierrez, Town Planning City Council.
Town Council.
Kevin Wright, Steve Porter County Surveyor.
George Topple, Union Township Trustee and Porter County. Kerry Kirkham, Port County Council.
Jack Harrell, Snyder County.
Tom Fett, Westville Town Council.
Don Henson, Beekman Town Council.
Will Fowlerbeck, Lowell Town Council.
Bill Emerson, Lake County Surveyor.
Christine Sid, Lake County Council.
Rick Towers, Utah Deputy Commissioner of the Port District. Tom McDermott, Mayor.
Jan Vance, Town of New Acres.
Rick Reifeld, Griffith Town Council.
Todd Smith, Sherrill Town Council.
Dave Schaefer, Clerk Treasurer for the Town of Munster. Brian Snedeker, Mayor of City of Hope. Nicholas DeHer, Mayor White.
Gary Canis, Town Council member.
Bob Carnahan, Cedar Lake Town Council.
It's Holiday City Representative, Governor's Representative.
Jim Chesterton, Town Council.
Dave Hollenbeck, NERC Attorney.
Ty Warner, Executive Director for NERC.
And Michael Griffin, Clerk Treasurer for the Town of Highland. Welcome, everyone. I'm reliably advised that we have a quorum, so we can proceed. The first business in order is public comment. Pursuant to our public comment policy, we have the signatures of two persons who wish to speak before the Commission this morning. And I will first recognize the person who first signed, Jim Nowacki of Gary, to speak on the matter of MDOT. Mr. Nowacki, are you here?
Yes, I am.
Welcome. Please speak.
President, members of the Commission, my name is Jim Nowacki. I'm a resident of the city of Gary, Indiana. And I've come before this Commission many times speaking about the problems we have with the road projects that are undertaken in our city. For several years I've complained about the deficiencies in the Route 1220 project, $40 million rebuild project. The project is falling apart even as we speak, filled with potholes, many engineering problems. I would bring to the board a new problem that has been evident that I haven't mentioned in the past, but goes to the point of my continuing complaints about that project. Right in front of City Hall, there is a brand new sidewalk. The sidewalk is 3 years old. Previously, they've replaced both ends of the sidewalk. It's from roadway to roadway because they've collapsed. But there remains 31 squares of brand new sidewalk. Try to imagine that, 31 squares of brand new sidewalk. Of the 31 squares, 13 of those, which represents, a little math there, 42% of the sidewalks are in a state of falling apart, broken up, cracked, need to be replaced. Try to imagine this. This is the brand new sidewalk right in front of City Hall. Right in front. 31 squares, 13 of them need to be replaced on a brand new sidewalk. Now I want to bring to your attention the new project we're doing. And you've probably heard about the Broadway project. It's about a $15 million project. From one end of the project to the other, problems. If I were to tell you that brand new work leaves a 9-inch pothole, you'd say, well, that's not true. I've got photographs. If I were to tell you that they paved over grates, drainage grates, you'd say, well, that's not possible, but I'd show you the photographs. If I told you that the weather was so cold that they paved right over puddles of frozen water, now you know that's not going to hold up. You'd say, well, that's not possible, but I've got photographs of it. From one end to the other, inadequate attention to details, problems just waiting to happen. But I bring this is the most severe problem we've got with that project. They paved it in freezing weather. Now, if you can imagine, if you've ever seen a paving job, they put in the asphalt and they roll the equipment over it time and time and time again to get it nice and level. Well, of course, as soon as you put that asphalt in below freezing weather, it solidifies right away, and it doesn't. The equipment leaves big ridges, places where it hasn't compacted at all. They've paved over active sinkholes. So from one end of the project to the other, and I'll continue to complain about it. I'm sure Mr. Representatives from INDOT are here, representatives from the state government. We cannot afford to waste millions and millions and millions of dollars doing work, and I'm promising you this, it won't last one season the way they've done it. And I'll make this comparison, and we're going to finish up now, to show the difference. It's not just racism. I mean, it's not just they're doing this in this community, but take it, if you go to Bridge Street, right on Fifth Avenue, Bridge Street, stand right there and you'll see two different projects. These projects are one season apart. One was started early in the season, one was started late in the season. One was done by Reith Riley, one was done by Walsh and Kelly. And compare the difference of those projects. One is holding up very well, the Walsh-Kelly project, holding up very well. Used all sorts of nice details, an excellent job. Take a look at the Reith Riley project, falling apart. Potholes, cracks, the whole project falling apart. It's only 3 years old. So if we want the city of Gary to come back, we're going to have to do better than deliver millions. And you can't just say we spent millions of dollars on it, because that's not the point. The point is we've got to spend it in a way, we've got to engineer, the project's got to hold up more than 3 seasons. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nowacki. The next person of two that wishes to speak to us this morning is David Wright. We recognize Mr. Wright in his role with the Gary Community Transportation, Public Transportation Corporation. And you'd like to speak to us on the matter of transit.
Yes. I'll try to be as brief as I possibly can. Again, my name is David Wright. I'm the Planning and Marketing Manager for Gary Public Transportation Corporation. I want to speak on two specific transit initiatives that have come before this board in the past and were discussed last week at the Technical Planning Committee meeting. One is the Lakeshore Project, which we've talked about several times for several months this year. My General Manager, Darrell Lampkins, did state for the record that we will be adding service to the Lakeshore South as a result of the efforts of GPTC, the Lake County Council, and the Northwest Indiana Regional Planning Commission, which convened a working group that continues to work and has already borne results, and the results are actually in paper. We did receive a check for $50,000 from the City of Hammond. I see Mayor McDermott is here, so I want to thank him for that vote of confidence in public transportation in not just his community, but in Northwest Indiana. Secondly, I would like to just repeat some things we talked about last night at a public event at the Metro Center, where we publicly announced the start date of the Broadway Metro Express. That is a rapid bus route that will be connecting Gary, Granville, and going into Crown Point via shuttle service. We will be starting that service on February 19th. We did want to get that started sometime this year, but because of some of the delays when it came to the construction of the Broadway resurfacing project, we can't do that until February. We will be working with NDOT to get the shelters installed around December and January. I wanted to pass out I know more paperwork for you guys. This is take that this way. Hopefully there's enough copies. Those are the start dates for the Broadway Metro Express and the two shuttles that will be serving that route that are new. One is the Maryville shuttle, which will be starting actually on January 22nd. Because of the commitment that the town of Maryville is making and actually investing in that, we wanted to get that on the road as quickly as possible. So that will be starting on January 22nd. I'd like to talk to Councilman Hardaway to get the best way of getting the word out to your residents on that. So if you're able to stick around after the meeting, I would love to talk to you about that. And The South Broadway shuttle is going to be connecting the rapid bus route to the Lake County Government Center and to the Purdue Technology Center. Because Ivy Tech has a campus at Purdue Technology Center, they actually agreed to buy the naming rights for that shuttle. So it will actually be the Ivy Tech South Broadway shuttle. 2-year commitment. They want to promote it within their all 3 campuses as a way of connecting all 3 of their Lake County campuses, and we thank them for the vote of confidence also in public transportation. And I'm also going to be passing this around. This is just something we put together yesterday that gives an indication of the the attractions that are going to be connected by the Broadway Metro Express, specific to the bus stops that are actually closest to those locations, both in Gary, Maryville, and in Crown Point. Unless there are any other questions, that ends my comment. But again, I want to thank those agencies and those municipalities at this table who are actually becoming involved in regional public transportation.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. And I just want to echo your appreciation to the Lake County Council, the Lake County government, and to the City of Hammond, and the other participants in that meeting. I was glad that NERC could begin to evidence one of its goals to be a convener of entities within our regional catchment area to try to affect solutions. I think that we all hope there'll be a longer-term solution that will rely on a different kind of funding mechanism than the one that was employed there. But I want to thank the communities that participated in that myself. I do want to make clear, in case it wasn't, we are convened as a full commission. Our quorum is established for that. So all the commissioners who are here around the table, equal dignity and therefore equal opportunity to be recognized and participate in the body of the work of the commission this morning. I want to recognize now Dave Hollenbeck, our attorney for the commission, to report on new appointments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have 2 certificates of appointment. Both are in proper form pursuant to our statutory requirements. And as such, we need to welcome Matt Murphy, who has been appointed by Mayor John Costas in Gary, and also Mary Brown, who has been appointed by Mayor Karen Friedman Wilson for the City of Gary. And I don't think either of them are here. But welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Hollenbeck. I'm not going to recognize Mitch Barloga, the venerable Mitch Barloga, of NERC staff, who will be presenting to us today on the Marquette Greenway Tiger Grant. Do we still have Tiger Grants? I guess you're going to tell us that.
Yes, we certainly do. Good morning.
Good morning.
Venerable, one day I'll look that up in detail. Thank you. I appreciate the time to speak before you. I will be speaking on a particular project here that we have been bird dogging at NERC for quite a few years and has actually taken on a bit more urgency of late, and kind of brief you about where we're going from here. So, many of you may or may not know about the Marquette Greenway. You know that NERC has been working very actively in non-motorized transportation for many years, and I'm proud to say we're probably one of the finest MPOs in the entire country at advocating for off-road trails. Of course, it helps that we have lots of opportunity to do so because of the number of shuttered railroads in our region. We had 1,000 miles of railroad in the late 1800s. We're down to 700. To do your Purdue math, you have 300 miles of opportunity. We've actually taken advantage of over a third of those to this day and have converted them into trails. However, we wanted to talk about a project that is not exactly along the abandoned right-of-way, but it's actually going to put together several separate projects from Chicago to New Buffalo. This gentleman here is someone you're all familiar with, Daniel Burnham. He said it best about make no little plans, they have no magic to stir men's blood. And in that vein, we decided to pursue a project called the Marquette Greenway. Now, the trail itself that we're looking to envision from Chicago to New Buffalo all started back in 2005. That was the Marquette Plan. Many of you are familiar with that. It was spearheaded by Congressman Pete Visclosky, and there were many great initiatives that came out of there. And the plan was subsequently expanded to the Michigan state line. So we actually had the entire shoreline of Indiana that was covered. A lot of ideas for economic revitalization. Many of those have been realized today. We have many people in the room that have been fortunate enough to receive funding and projects because of the Marquette Plan. And one of the projects that did come forward here was a off-road trail, multi-use trail from Chicago to New Buffalo. And it wasn't identified in name at that time, but it was certainly one of the priorities. What became of that priority eventually is this, the Marquette Greenway. In 2009, as part of the Daniel Burnham 100-year celebration of the 1909 plan, NERC produced a poster plan that finally outlined in detail what that trail would look like. Again, it was generally talked about in the Marquette Plan, and NERC finally decided we're going to connect the dots and we're going to make sure people understand where this trail is going and who it's going to benefit. Okay. In 2015, it was further enhanced with an update of the Marquette Plan, the Marquette Action Plan in 2015 that kind of brought the initiatives to date, where we are, where we need to go, and what is necessary to complete the overall vision that was set out over a decade ago. And part of that update was a significant focus on the Marquette Greenway. So this has been well planned. This is not a project that it's just something that just hit the radar screen. Recently, we have been working on this off and on, probably for the last decade here, specifically at NERC. As for the actual route of the trail itself, as you can see from the map on the screen, it starts at Calumet Park in Chicago. It winds through Whiting, Hammond, East Chicago, into Gary, and then into the Indiana Dunes National Lakeshore, eventually into communities such as Ogden Dunes and Portage, and then along the existing Calumet Trail. And I think I have a laser here that will take any of the commissioner's eyes out. I don't think it's working. Oh, it is barely. But the Calumet, sorry, Jeff. I know what your Christmas gift will be. So,
I don't need that cataract anymore.
The Calumet Trail actually runs along the Indiana Dunes National Lakeshore. It's not in the best shape now. I'll talk about that momentarily. That takes it to LaPorte County through Michigan City and eventually up into New Buffalo. The connection in Chicago, many of you may or may not realize where Calumet Park is. It is a community, but it is also one of the largest parks in the city of Chicago, the Chicago Park District. A very beautiful facility. If you have never had the opportunity to be there, and this trail will connect right into the heart of it. So, the actual length of the vision from east to west is 58 miles. Okay? To date, we have constructed or have funded 28 of those miles, and that leaves a remaining 30 miles to finish. That's a lot of miles, and we've been able to work on this at NERC with our federal funds over the years, attributing it to many of the communities and piecing together some of it, but right now we needed some help to actually get the whole thing done. So we needed a tiger. Okay, not that tiger. This tiger. TIGER is the acronym for Transportation Investment Generating Economic Recovery. It was started in 2009 as part of the stimulus package, as you all know, that helped get this country out of the Great Recession. $5.1 billion has been awarded to 421 projects in all 50 states since its inception. It is an 80-20 federal to local match, but more local is desired. I can almost guarantee if you come in at an 80-20, it will find the circular file. Projects that improve infrastructure, address public safety, promote regional connectivity, or facilitate economic growth or competitiveness are the core requirements. The round that we applied for, the FY 2017, began on September 7th and terminated on October 16th. There was $500 million available nationwide. However, only 5% of all those projects submitted are awarded. About 600 plus projects that are awarded per year, and about 30 or so, that are submitted per year, and about 30 or so are actually awarded. Yes, that's a very low percentage, a very highly competitive program, but of course it's all based on the projects that are submitted. We think we have a pretty good one here in the Marquette Greenway. So let's talk about the successes that have happened, and they're going to kind of scroll here. Trails have been a very successful component of TIGER applications in the past, and here are the projects that have been awarded over the years for TIGER. from the Indianapolis Cultural Trail back in 2009, a $20.5 million award. And then we continue on through here. Philadelphia received $10.3 million to connect gaps in their city in 2015, and a Reconnecting Cleveland project, which is a lot like the project we had with the Marquette Greenway because of the project actually connecting areas of environmental justice concerns and also trying to get people to their lakefront as well, much like we're doing with the Marquette Greenway, and they received $7.9 million in 2016. Just so you know, the minimum Tiger request is $5 million, the maximum is $25 million, hence why so many people really enjoy this program. As for the Marquette Greenway itself, this was the application that we submitted. Again, it's much like the map that you saw previously, and it's kind of hard to read all those numbers, but there are 20 individual project segments of the Marquette Greenway that constitute the 30 miles that we're requesting funding for. Okay, so I call this the home run shot. We have the opportunity to finish one of the largest non-motorized initiatives anywhere in the country under one grant, and we're hoping that the federal government will go along with us. So it's a project application for 30 unfunded miles in all 3 states and 20 projects altogether. The total project cost is $35.5 million. Our request is $24.2 million. That is actually a 68% request. Again, 80% is the maximum request. And again, the more local match, again, the more skin in the game you can bring, the better your chances of receiving the application. So we're pretty pleased that we were able to secure 32% local match. It includes local funds at 27% by the communities where the trail runs through, plus previous awards that have been received by segments along the corridor. I'm going to take you through what these mean bit by bit and show you what the segments are about. This one is in, it's again, South Chicago, coming out of Calumet Park. There's a picture of Calumet Park. Again, if you haven't been there before, phenomenal views of the lakeshore, of Hammond, of the steel mills, and somewhat of Chicago itself. Okay. Now segment 2 and 3 coming in. Now you have to remember, and again, a lot of credit. We have Mayor McDermott here. Where did he go? Where did he go? Oh, there he is. Hi, Tom. Hammond and Whiting, for that matter. We have Mayor Joe in the room as well. They have been very proactive in building their portion of the Marquette Greenway to such an extent that they're pretty much all built out. We have Hammond and we have Whiting pretty much taken care of. So what happens is that the next funding segment you're looking at here actually runs from Kennedy Avenue over to Klein Avenue. It involves both the communities of Hammond and East Chicago to make this stretch work. Now, this is kind of hard to read, but what we're looking to do is that when you get to Kennedy Avenue, on the very right side of this picture, it's kind of hard to see that there's a railroad there. There's an existing north-south railroad. If you don't know how railroads operate, they don't like trails. They don't like roads. They don't pretty much like anything that crosses into their ways of operation. I guess you can make a point for that. We're going to have to bridge over it. The idea is to actually put a cantilever or an extension of the toll road bridge that would allow for the trail to cross over not only the tracks but also Kennedy Avenue and provide that safe crossing for the people here. This is part of the grant application. The next segment continues on to the east, and now we're into primarily the city of Gary. This is where things get a bit more complicated. Running a trail through this particular area is very challenging, especially around the Klein Avenue area. There's railroads, you have highways, you have off-ramps, you have steel mills, you have other industrial sites, you have some conservation areas that are owned by land trusts that are in that area, and of course then you have NIPSCO and NICD running through there as well with their corridors. Lots of spaghetti to work through. The trail corridor that we hope we can work with all the entities on is that red line. And that red line would go underneath Klein Avenue ramps. Eventually you can see that bridge on the lower part there. That is another railroad that is going north-south that we believe we can actually excavate clearance under. Right now it's 4 feet tall. Children can make it under there just fine. However, for us, we're going to have to excavate probably down to 8 to 10 feet to make it work. And some embankment work to make sure the grain kite diverter doesn't join you on the ride. That's going to be an engineering issue. If we cannot make it past that particular pitch point, you see some alternatives that we have to the south that would run through the purple line here The blue and the purple line, again, I'll point you to where you can find more information about this grant. You can take a look at it in better detail, but needless to say, it is a bit of a challenge, but we're looking to get through there, work with NICD, work with our right-of-way, and eventually make our way into the Gary neighborhoods to connect to the existing part of the Marquette Greenway that now exists from Broadway over to Bridge Street. It is actually complete in there, complete or funded. And this picture that you see before you takes Broadway on the very left side of the picture, runs it all the way east to the National Lakeshore. If you didn't know, there is a strip of National Lakeshore property that goes right to Broadway, right to Union Station.
Yep.
You would know this.
Yes, I walk it every day.
There you go. So what we have here is a wonderful opportunity to take advantage of basically an isolated segment of the National Lakeshore. It's probably one of the most beautiful sections of the National Lakeshore. Here's an idea of how that'll look. This is when we took a tour of it. This is the old Indiana Harbor Belt abandoned railroad there, and it is prime for a trail to be built upon it. The ballast is still there. The only thing you don't have there are the tracks and the ties. So we're looking to bring that all the way through there. On the very right side of your picture, you'll see it continuing going to the northeast. That is the existing Marquette Trail in the National Lakeshore, and that will be repaved as asphalt. It is currently a limestone facility. We've been working with National Park Service and Paul Labovitz closely on making sure that we have a consistent surface from start to finish on this trail. When we get out of here, we come through the area that we're at here in Portage, just north of us. Coming through, we go through West Beach, and there is a corridor here. Again, that old IHB corridor continues through West Beach, goes right in the Ogden Dunes, and then comes right to south of the Portage Lakefront and Riverwalk facility. We would like the trail to access all those areas, the National Lakeshore, as well as making sure people have a safe access up to the Portage Beach. And then it'll continue south here, right behind us, on 249, and kind of take a curve over here in NERPC through the Ameriplex property where Bass Pro Shops is, and continue on east to Burns Harbor. Here are some pictures of a bridge that will be taken advantage of over here at the north side in the sense of being restored. We have an old bridge on Crisman Road. It's just, again, north of our property. It's just off of 249. That's a picture of it off of 249. And here's another view of it. We have made sure that funds have been applied for the restoration of this bridge facility for bike and pedestrian use only. And that is actually going over the Little Calumet River. Another area that is really, to say the least, undiscovered and some beautiful country goes through Burns Harbor. Again, the National Lakeshore, as you can see here, that blue line is the Little Calumet River, the east branch of the Little Calumet River. The National Lakeshore owns land on both the north side. We look to take advantage of some of that property, some property that is actually owned by ArcelorMittal, and continue it on through the east, underneath the Norfolk Southern Line, and on the very right side of this picture where it says the town of Porter, working with the National Lakeshore to get it to the existing trail that's on Howe Road. So making that connection to the town of Porter. This is one of the most expensive parts of the project itself. We have bridges involved here. There's some slopes that we have to deal with. And much engineering has already been facilitated on this project with the community. So that has helped advance this along. And again, talking about the Norfolk Southern Bridge, as you can see there on the right-hand picture, plenty of clearance. And the property itself, as you see on the left-hand side, again, you're basically on your own, you're isolated, and again, you're right in the middle of an urbanized area, right south of a heavily industrialized area, and you wouldn't know the difference. You're walking right through the heart of nature. And even better than that, you're connecting both the east and west land holdings of the National Lakeshore by trail. This is a pretty straight shot. This is the one of the Calumet Trail. I don't know if you understand what the Calumet Trail is. It is the oldest trail facility in northwest Indiana. It was built in 1972. It's a slag facility. It was rebuilt in 2002 as a limestone facility. It is now a water trail. It is muddy, very muddy. It wasn't built correctly. It wasn't elevated right. We are now in the process of working with Porter County Parks to turn it into an asphalt facility with plenty of drainage improvements. And we have this 4-mile segment right in front of you here at the Indiana Dunes from Broadway and Beverly Shores all the way down to Tremont Road to finish and to finally make that connection whole along that stretch of trail. And here's how the cross-section will look. You'll finally be elevated above the existing areas of natural habitat, where right now that trail is kind of level with it, and hence why it floods out consistently. We get into Michigan City. The subject here is the Singing Sands Trail. Again, we have some challenges in Michigan City with some industrial land and some railroads and some highways, as you can imagine. We have a lot of that issue in Northwest Indiana, nothing strange here in Michigan City. We're looking to run it through actually Potawatomi Park. International Friendship Gardens has given us some right-of-way to make it work out, and eventually we'll come back to US 12 and head on into New Buffalo. When you get into the Michigan section here, actually we talk about International Friendship Gardens real quickly. If you haven't been there, a phenomenal facility. The trail is now planned to run just to the north of here, but to provide direct access for people to get into the Friendship Gardens facility. And then the final segment that we get into New Buffalo is about a 4-mile segment. The state line's on the bottom of the town of New Buffalo. I have to say that of all people that I dealt with on this, the Michigan people are pretty much over the top regarding this entire trail project. I received 74 letters of support, and I think almost half of them came from Michigan alone. We have a commitment from the Potawatomi Fund, which is the Four Winds Foundation out there, and they're looking to put as much as $1 million into this project once we can actually get it secured as part of the local match for this Tiger grant. So, in fact, I'm going to be going to a fundraiser tonight in New Buffalo for this very project, raising money to start doing some engineering work on it. This is how quality they are to the system. So that's very exciting to see for that community. And this is kind of give you an understanding of how the trail is going to work. People are asking me, how's it going to work from Michigan City to New Buffalo? If you know this stretch of road going into Harbor Country, you have US 12, you have Amtrak, and there's not much to work with. We're going to actually be north of the Amtrak lines at Grand Beach Road, and we're going to be kind of winding the trail along Grand Beach Road to the right-of-way, using public right-of-way to make that connection happen. This is hard to read, don't try to, but this breaks down all the 20 segments based on the communities that are responsible for that, the local match, the engineering, and this is how we get the calculations eventually to what we're requesting for the Tiger, which is $24.2 million. We put together, of course, a schedule of completion. If we're to receive this grant, either later this year, most likely early next year, we're looking for the commencement sometime in early 2019 and to complete this project in 2023 or 2024, all the way through. A lot of superlatives can be brought into this project. There's a 200,000 population within 1.5 miles of the project area. 60,000 people are actually employed within that very corridor today. Of course, much of that is with the steel and petroleum and, of course, with NIPSCO. The project connects 3 states, 5 counties, 15 municipalities, and the Indiana Dunes National Lake Shore State Park. It is directly adjacent to 3 South Shoreline stations and 2 Amtrak stations. Major existing trail connections to both Chicago and Wolf Lake. Direct link to the Grand Illinois Trail and Harbor Country Trail Network in Michigan. Again, we had 74 letters of support, so we continue to get them trickling in. But at every level of government, and corporations, advocates, foundations, and tourist bureaus. And we did a benefit cost analysis on this for you policy wonks. We have that online as well, and it came out to be absolutely phenomenal over a 20-year period. So now what? Where do we go from here? We wait. I did this presentation back in October, so we not have to wait as long here. The 2007 round should be announced early in 2018. We want to work with local entities and landowners to secure a final route in the undefined areas. That includes the city of Gary, that includes Burns Harbor and the like. We would like to get firm financial commitments. The letters of support that I received were just that, support. They were not financial commitments for a local match. To make this grant even more attractive to the feds, we're going to need that actual financial commitment. Local and county officials, the National Lakeshore, and the Indiana Department of Natural Resources, corporations, and foundations. Again, it's highly competitive, only a 5% award rate. Now, the good news is, if we do not receive the grant this time around, we're going to go after the next cycle, which may commence sometime in May, actually maybe April or May of next year. If that is the case, again, we need to line up financial commitments and make sure people on board to make sure that one is a successful application. And that is it. I thank you for your time, for your attention, and more than happy to take any questions.
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
the
economic benefit analysis resulted in about $187 million for the $35 million investment. So just talking about cost to benefit ratio, it is extremely high.
Yes, it is. That's impressive.
I think the project speaks for itself in many cases, so.
Mitch, I think it's great, first off, and, you know, I want to participate. I already wrote a letter of support, but even though most of the work will take place outside of Hammond, I think Hammond should participate because this is a great connection and lots of people go through Whiting and Hammond on a daily basis, especially during the spring and summer, and this will give them a clear route all the way to New Buffalo. So I want to say great job. I think it's super exciting as a cyclist, and I think I don't think enough people know about this either. Like maybe you could go out and go into the public and speak to people, like non-suit wearing people, and tell them what's going on. So
I don't mind not wearing a suit, trust me.
no, I think it's awesome. I just want to congratulate you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Is there any other comment or questions of Mitch?
Can I ask a question, Mr. President? Sure, of course.
Actually, we appreciate that you want to do that, Mr. Nowaki. We're going to allow for members of the commission, if that's okay. I'm sensitive to time.
I'll speak to it later.
Thank you.
I was just going to make a quick comment on the investment and return on investment on this to echo Mr. Brightsky's point. A couple years ago, I had a chance to speak with folks that were involved in the Atlanta Beltline, which Mitch had up there as a previous Tiger Grant recipient. And if you've been down there and seen the effect of that in the Atlanta region, it's astronomical. I mean, you have restaurants that are moving from their location on trafficked corridors to be able to locate their restaurant on the trail. It's that popular and that successful. So I don't know if it's an exact analog, but it certainly is the closest analog that we have in our region. And I think if this is favorably granted, I think it's going to bode well for the entire stretch.
I hope so. And also, just so you know, the entire application that was sent to the United States Department of Transportation is on our website. It's under our transportation link. You'll find the Tiger Grant there in full. And take a look at all these lovely maps to your heart's content. And again, if you can, if you're part of the route, if you're on the route itself, expect a call from me to try to lock down some further commitments. And again, really appreciate your support for this project.
Thank you very much, Mitch. I echo what everyone else said about the positives of the project. Thank you for your industry on it.
Thank you.
The next business in order is to approve the minutes. You have before you the minutes of the meeting of October 19, 2017. I want to thank at this time our Vice Chair, Jeff Benson, who stood in for me as acting chair. A number of our members had to go to training that day in Middlebury, but the real reason I went was for the pie at Nassesson House and the training. You've had it. It's been moved to approve, and it's been seconded to approve the minutes of October 19th. Sensing no discussion on the matter, as many as in favor of adopting the minutes say aye. As many opposed say no. The ayes have it. The minutes of October 19th are adopted. Thank you. I'm going to ask the forbearance of the commission. I'm sensitive to some time. I want to make sure that we protect the quorum to get some of our essential business out of the way, which is part of the reason why we did our minutes. So if there is no objection, let the record reflect under general consent, we move to the matters for the Finance Personnel Committee, and we're going to have Ty take over to recognize the staff who will present those items of business.
Very good. I was going to introduce our new Chief Financial Officer during my report, but since we'll come back to that later, let me first of all introduce Daria Stava, who is our new Chief Financial Officer, has hit the ground running with her Welcome to NERC present being the development of the 2018 budget. With a lot of help from Kathy Luther, our Chief of Staff, who's been doing a phenomenal job keeping the ship afloat. So happy to have Daria on board. We're going to be very brief and just some highlights, but please, if there's anything we want to highlight, this is your time.
Does everyone have a copy of the revision, we've made revisions to the budget since we sent out your packet last week?
You should have at your place, it says 2018 budget revised dated 12/14, which is slightly updated than what was in your packet.
Anybody who doesn't have this?
Newer math.
Yeah, person two.
Should go in first. She's doing this project first.
Oh, the budget.
We're going to take it to order. It's going to move the entirety of our meeting.
I think we only need the full commission for the new budget, not the amendment.
Correct. The chair's clarified he's intending to take these items in the order that they are on the agenda, so the amendment would come first if there's anything you want to summarize with that.
So the first, I'll do the budget amendment, that's the first thing. We're gonna tag team this. Okay, no, we're gonna do the budget amendment first. The budget amendment is just two, there are changes within categories, where, first of all, we have started a contract for the ETIP software, and so we're doing a change between contractual for the travel demand survey, which is in about a minute, into contractual for our ETIP software. So that is in your packet on page, no, look at our packet.
Is it?
Page 6? Page 4 of your meeting.
So this proposes to amend the 2017
Okay.
budget. This is not our proposed new 2018 budget, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
So amendment number 17 is a transfer between one contractual line item to another contractual line item in the amount of $15,000.
Motion to approve the action on the budget amendment.
On Amendment 7, it's been moved to approve and it's been seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Sensing none, as many as in favor of the adoption of Amendment 7, say aye.
Aye.
As many opposed, say no. The ayes have it, the amendment is adopted. Next.
Okay, the second budget amendment is, again, transferring within departmental categories. As you may recall from last meeting, we have had an account temp on staff for several months while we had gaps in our staffing. And so we are moving $7,000 into the audit and accounting contractual line to continue to pay for her services. An additional $1,000 we are adding to the MPO conference line, and we are transferring those from expense items in the commissioners' departmental expenses and the allocated departmental expenses. So we're moving $8,000 around between.
Motion to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve Amendment number 8. Is there any discussion on the motion? Sensing none, as many as in favor of adopting Amendment 8 to the current budget, say aye.
Aye.
As many as opposed, say no. The ayes have it, the amendment is adopted.
So the second item, the second item for your approval is a contract with Westad Incorporated. This is a piggyback, we did a piggyback procurement with the Chicago Metropolitan Area for Planning for a travel demand survey. This is a study we have to do every 10 years or so to calibrate our transportation model. So we're piggybacking on them. Our total cost is $276,139 for this contract to get data just for Lake Porter and LaPorte County. This is federal STBG funds, which we are matching with grant from the Regional Development Authority for Lake and Porter counties, and then local share for the LaPorte County portion. This is a 2-year contract, so we're asking for your approval.
Motion. Second.
I heard a motion to adopt this matter before us and a second. Is there any desire to discuss the matter? Sensing none, as many as in favor of adopting this contract agreement signify by saying aye.
Aye.
As many as opposed, say no. The ayes have it, the motion carries, the agreement is adopted. We're ready now to consider budget for 2018.
So I'm going to talk about revenue, and then Barry is going to talk about expenses, and it will all be clear at the end. So the first page of the budget is the general fund revenue sources, and that is divided into our 3 statutory planning domains. So the planning section is primarily transportation, the environmental section, and the economic development section. The planning revenue is primarily from section 303. Because we had shorter staff last year, we rolled some of that revenue from 17 into 18. We have the STBG funds I just mentioned, which is surface transportation grant, and FTA transit planning. That's the first chunk of revenues. The second chunk of revenue is environmental grants. I just want to do a second to brag that the environmental department, you may know, has almost $9.5 million in grants, and the only local share we have from NERC is $577 left over from NIPSCO's Bike on Trains donation. So we are generating all that revenue, primarily with the help of in-kind partners, so thank you for your staff that go to meetings that we can count their time. And then the third part is the economic development, which is our LaPorte County revolving loan fund that we maintain, and the revenue for that is primarily interest and application fees for loans. And then the fourth section is kind of other. We have the Kankakee River Basin Commission contract, which funds Jody Melton, and space and time here. We have a small contract from the Sheriff Ethics Advisory. So our total revenue anticipated for 2018 would be $3.7 million. And so
Thank you, Ms. Luther. Ms. Stottle, welcome. It's good to have you here.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Okay, so the second part of the budget are expenses. The difference between, on the third page, you can see the difference between 2017 and 2018 budget. Oh, sorry. 2018 budget. Overall, our estimated expenses for 2018 are lower by 8.5%. It's due to capital outlays, which 2017 included our purchasing our new computers and implementation of the new Windows 2010. We have slightly increase in salary expense due to new position. Also, we estimated we have in our budget 3 open positions, and we'll be hiring between March and April. The increase in salary expense includes also 3% merit increases for eligible employees. So employees that at least has been with NERC for 12 months. And the total increase for the salary is 4.9%. The other lines like fringe benefits, the increase is based on it's a percentage of the increase of the salary increase, because if the salary goes up, all taxes related to the salary expense also will be higher. Occupancy expense and equipment expense is based mostly on contracts. If there is any contract increase for the 2018 fiscal year, we also included in the budget. The contractuals, they are the lowest item for the 2017 budget. Due to some programs, they are no longer existed for 2018, and the decrease is 22.6%. Our total budget, our total expenses are $3,727,611, which exactly matches our grant. So we are in balance.
Actually, it looks like you're in perfect balance. That's remarkable.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
This 2018 budget comes to the full commission with a favorable recommendation by the Finance and Personnel Committee, and I therefore move the adoption of the 2018 budget as presented.
Second.
I thank Commissioner Shaver, and I thank the person who seconded it. Is there any sense to discuss the matter before us? Sensing none, as many as in favor of adopting the budget, say aye. Aye. As many as opposed, say no. The ayes have it. The motion passes. The budget for 2018 is adopted. It's good to meet you, Ms. Stottle. Welcome. It's always good to see you, Ms. Luther. And thank you both.
Thank you all.
And I thank the forbearance of the commission. So we're going to resume our regular order. Even if you see somebody moving around, unless there's an objection, the presumption is we've maintained our quorum. So we will proceed then to the report of yours truly. I'll be very brief. A nominating committee has been identified and will be meeting this Friday to put together a slate and a report, and we hope to report that back to the full commission at its meeting in January. We also have a bylaws task force. I want to recognize the members of that: David Shaver, George Topple, Justin Kyle, Will Ferrelbeg, and I. We haven't met face-to-face yet. We've actually had our correspondence by email, but the proto-penultimate draft is completed. That is to say, we believe that we have essentially the document that we want to bring to you. It's now under review by our attorney. We hope to have that to you sometime next year. That should have been funny.
I didn't think of that.
You're all trying to figure out what proto-penultimate is. That's one before. That's it. It's a character. That's right. He was in Lord of the Rings. In any event, my expectation is The task force will meet one more time to take a look at the work product as rendered and reviewed by the attorney. We'll take one last stab at it. There's placeholders in there for existing policy that define commissions, and then my hope is that it'll be brought to the full commission for its deliberation and action. Finally, I wanted to remind everyone, I did name Mary Tanis of Dyer, hello Commissioner Tanis, to serve as the chairperson of our legislative committee, and I am going to ask that that committee then take steps to meet on matters of great pith and moment, to quote Shakespeare. My last matter, this sort of is a recognition of all the heavy lifting that's done here at NERC. I am in receipt of a letter addressed to me as chair of the commission that once again the Northwest Indiana Regional Planning Commission has received its Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting from the Government Finance Officers Association of Chicago, Illinois, for its comprehensive annual financial report, sometimes called by the acrostic CAFR, for its period ending 2016. I've done these myself, actually. They are not easy to get, and I want to commend the people of NERC for this. You should join me in celebrating this. This is a big deal. Not just the public finance nerds either. Okay, and I thank the Commission for its forbearance. I thank you for your continued goodwill. I've already thanked Mr. Benson for standing in for me, so I recognize now the Executive Director, Mr. Warner, for his report.
Thank you very much. First note, just to follow up on the bylaws discussion, those are more than just meeting procedures, which is why they're not only being reviewed by our attorney, but they're also being reviewed by staff to make sure that it don't conflict with any existing policy. So congratulate Mr. Griffin on his breadth of
our task
and the
force
committee,
really did the heavy
right, exactly, for diving into a whole bunch of issues in there. But that's under review by both of us right now. I already introduced to you Daria Stava, and again, very happy to have her on board. She comes to us from the healthcare sector, where she's used to a lot of changing regulations and even grants and all. And so it's been great to have her on board. So I want to welcome her officially too as our new Chief Financial Officer. And then also, I think he's still here in the back, is Charles Bradsky, who comes to us from INDOT, from the LaPorte District Office. Sorry, Rick, but thank you. Lindsay Quist has been phenomenal, his previous supervisor, in making the transition go really, really well. It helps all of us to have good people doing this. So Charles fills in for the slot that Gary Evers had taken before his retirement. And again, coming from INDOT and already being familiar with the project process, he's also been able to hit the ground running. I remarked when I saw him on the first day in his workspace that it felt like he'd already been here for 2 years. He just fit right in and was already slipping into the role very easily. So glad to have Charles on board. We have 2 other new hires that were not able to be here today because they were both at a training in Chicago. We have Trey Wadsworth, who is our new Director of Transportation. This is a newly formulated position whose main function is to make sure that our operations as an NPO are all on track, all the I's are dotted, all the T's are crossed. Trey comes to us from the Massachusetts Department of Transportation, so moved out here from Boston to take this role and has also hit the ground running. Came with me to the Indiana NPO Council last week and was able to introduce him to the other NPOs throughout Indiana, the other 14 NPOs, and already has been doing a great job acclimating to everything happening at NERC and making the transition to an NPO from the state DOT, although he did work with the NPOs in the Boston area, which is one of the reasons why he comes with a lot of experience. And then we also have Talea Jones, who is our new Chief Accountant, who's also at the training with Trey downtown. We took Talea from East Chicago, so apologies to Mayor Copeland. Yeah, Jeff says so that's why he's not present today. She's been doing great also, and I'm very happy to have these 4 in place. They've been phenomenal and really, I think, are going to serve NERC well. And as you get to know them, please do talk to them and get to know them. I think they're great to have on staff. Also in the room, I want to transition to talk a little bit about One Region. This came up last meeting, some questions were raised. Leah Conradi is here, who's the Executive Director of One Region, and just thought it would be a good idea during my report to talk about some of the things that we've been talking about a lot, particularly a new initiative we're trying to partner on together. We have a very active, as I think you know, young professionals group in Northwest Indiana, but the future leadership of this region is really dependent on folks like Leah, and to not put too fine a point on it, her age bracket and enthusiasm for what's happening here. And there are a lot of folks that want to be connected and want to be engaged. So we have talked a long time, Leah and I, about the Atlanta Regional Commission, who has done a New Voices program, which is this award-winning way that they've brought millennial demographic into the conversation and have engaged them to try to deal with these regional issues. We've talked a lot about how to concretize that in a more deliberate way, and we also, at least on the NERC side, are aware that we are gearing up for our 2050 update to be the next iteration of what has been the 2040 Comprehensive Regional Plan. So all these things are aligning and working with one region. Hopefully we will be able to, in early 2018, be able to partner with one region on being able to engage that age bracket in a real deliberate and intentional way to get their voices at the table on the regional level, which will not only benefit one region's priorities in trying to engage that bracket of young professionals, but also will give us very valuable input as we prepare for that 2050 update, which is 2019. But that's a long process to do that comprehensive review, so the time to start really is now. So I'm excited about these conversations we're having. We're going to get down to some brass tacks on exactly how to make this work, but I think it bodes well for the future. If I can take the prerogative, I don't know if Leah, if you just want to, not to put you on the spot, but since you're here, if there's anything you want to say.
Yeah, no, I can say a few words. I think it's a really exciting partnership for One Region and NERC to work together. There's a good synergy there, and what we're looking to do, One Region wants to, our big focus is grow population, attract, retain talent in Northwest Indiana. And so in order to do that, we need to understand what young professionals are looking for and what they want to see in the region. And most of all, we want to drive action from their solutions. So we want to identify issues and then drive action from it. So working with NERC on this is a perfect tie. So that's really what we're looking for.
Yeah, right. Thank you, appreciate it. Just real quick, you already heard from David Wright about the Lakeshore South Forum going on. I just want to thank James Winters, who's our transit planner, for his working on the staff level to make that happen. It's been very productive, and thanks to the communities that have come to the table to have that conversation. I also want to say a quick word here about the Economic Development District. I think you know this has been a long process. Roosevelt Ellen, rest in peace, was championing this for a long time, had been a regular item on your agenda. We haven't had an update for that a while, and we have new developments in that score. I've been able to spend a lot of time lately talking to the regional division head of the EDA in Chicago about this issue and about how we can move this forward. They have mobilized their staff. They have new staff that have been able to take a fresh look at the application to make sure that's moving through the process. And we got some recent feedback, which in practicality I don't think will make much difference, but you should be aware of a change in what they're requesting in the application that was put forward. The rules and the composition for the board that was governing that process changed since I think it was 9 years ago plus when that nonprofit was first created, and that grew out of feedback at the time to deal with those existing rules that I wasn't here at the time, so I'm only piecing together why that was created, but at the time it was seen necessary to create this nonprofit board to meet those requirements. Since that time, the rules have changed, and the new feedback from EDA is to rework the application, so we have to do just a few things on it, but to make it more explicit that the committee would be, and the EDD itself would be an actual NERC function. The application that was put forward to the EDA through the nonprofit had an agreement in there that the nonprofit would contract with NERC to do all the work. And so the EDA is basically saying, and all the other EDDs in Indiana and all the ones that I'm familiar with in the country are all housed in regional councils. So this nonprofit issue was always, I never quite understood it. Well, now the EDA is saying we need to make it explicit that it is a NERC function as a unit of local government, council of governments, regional council. So we'll be convening that board that exists for the existing nonprofit to help with that transition. They've asked for some identification of the roles on that board and how they meet the exact requirements of what's listed in the Federal Register. But it should not be really much of a transition. It's just more of a, what's the word I'm looking for? Almost a semantic change, really, in the application to make it clear that there's not this intermediary step. But that same advisory council or advisory board should be able to be advisory as part of the NERC commission structure. So hopefully we'll have more to say on that in January and any action that has to be specifically taken. But you wanted to be aware of that. I think this is a very positive development. I get the sense in talking to them that I know this has been a story for 10 years, so I'm cautious, but I get the sense that we're this close to getting that designation completed with these final changes. So again, I don't think I don't think you're going to see any difference really in the function. It's just some changes we have to make to the application.
I just want to comment that the reason it's under its current structure is because it used to be housed, and I sit on the EDD, and we were officially told that they would not move us forward as long as we were housed underneath, and that we needed to create a structure where the EDD was independent of NERC and the forum. And so we created a whole new structure, in between, where we were independent as a not-for-profit. And now you're saying that they're saying, no, we need to reverse back and go into what was the original structure. Okay. I mean, it's been 6 years. I mean, Roosevelt and I, as you said, God rest his soul, we spent many hours, and I guess we're going to spend many more.
So you did what you were supposed to do.
We did what we were told we had to do if we wanted to be recognized by the EDA.
Back then. Yeah. You did it right.
And so we created entirely new bylaws, an entirely new structure for the organization, totally separated it from NERC, everything else, and now we're being told that it needs to be brought back underneath the umbrella.
Go back to square one again.
Okay. All right. Just want to make sure I'm clear so I know what work lies ahead.
I think as Kay is also nodding back there, I think there's been a theme over those 10 years.
Oh, yes.
But be it as it may, I think, again, the way, one of the rules, this is what they've said.
Okay.
The rules have changed, and the relationship in the application was already contracting with NERC to do the work, plus NERC staff had already been doing this anyway. So that's why I say in practical terms it doesn't change much, but you're right. It's a shift from what was told way back when that I think we're finally getting there.
Greg, I'm also on that committee, and this is frustrating to you, but I think it's worthwhile to continue.
Oh, no, it's definitely worthwhile to continue, but it's just frustrating that, they keep seeming to move the bar.
We welcome back the prodigals, leave and then come back. Does that conclude your report, Mr.
That does, unless there's any
And I
other
thank you
questions.
for that. Are there any questions of Todd? Seeing none, I'm going to move on then to receive the Environmental Management Policy Committee report with the noble Jeff Benson.
Thank you. The EMPC meets every Thursday, the first Thursday of every month, right here in this room at 9 a.m. You're welcome to join us. In your packet on page 23 and 24 is our October minutes. We also had a meeting in December, which you'll see those minutes at your next meeting. But I would like to take this time to ask Kay Nelson, who's the environmental person from the forum, to talk about her sort of new position and this very timely information that you all need to hear.
Good morning, everyone. I apologize for my casual clothes. I'm working on Christmas decorations today, so themed. As many of you may know, I was recently appointed by Governor Holcomb to be one of the 11 board members on the VW Trust Board for Indiana. Out of the $2.9 billion that VW paid into a mitigation trust fund, the state of Indiana will have $40.9 million with which to spend on eligible projects. Our initial board meeting will be January 11th. We will be hosting 5 meetings throughout the state to kind of kick off and let the persons or stakeholder groups come to these meetings, ask some further questions. I know that we will have at least 1, if not 2, in Northwest Indiana. This is a statewide spend. It is not just for Lake and Porter counties. The beneficiary status was submitted by Governor Holcomb November 17th, and we will anticipate our official approval in the next few months. I will give Mary the website, well, she already has it, for the Item Trust Fund portal. On that, you will find the copy of the Indiana Beneficiary Mitigation Plan Draft Framework. We are asking for public comments on there. It gives some details on how this money will be applied for and spent and what type of eligible projects are for consideration. But as I've been contacted by many people around this room, as well as many outside of the state of Indiana, which I find interesting, IDEM will serve as our technical review group on the applications, providing a scoring mechanism for the board to respond and send monies to those. The money will be distributed over a 3 installment period. I have already advocated with Commissioner Bruno Piggott from IDEM that I would like to see it being a rolling application and not just a one-time per year, but we don't have confirmation on if we can do that. I think those are the points. The 11 board members include former Senator Bev Gard, whom I've worked with on multiple issues, myself, Bill Baranek, who's president of the Indiana Environmental Institute, Reggie Jones, a Central Indiana business owner and philanthropist, Brent Dixon, a retired Indiana Supreme Court Justice, adjunct at the IU McKinney School of Law, Joe McGinnis, Commissioner of NDOT, Tristan Vance, Director of the Indiana Office of Energy Development, Danielle McGrath, Vice President of Indiana Economic Development Corporation, Melissa, and I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name properly, Rekaweg, who is the Interim Director of the Indiana State Department of Agriculture, Bruno as Commissioner of IDEM, and Jody Peacock, Vice President of Ports of Indiana. So I'm encouraging all the communities to think outside of the box, think big. Your applications will be scored on the value added to air quality improvements from what you are proposing. If you have comments that you want to send directly to me versus the website, please feel free to do so. Mary or anybody at IDEM can give you my email address if you need it. So, should there be any questions, Mr. Chair?
Please.
Comment. We've already been talking to, thank you, Katie, and we're thrilled that you're on that committee. Sean Seals from IDEM is planning to be here in January and to address the commission. So you'll get a even more robust, at that time, report.
Correct. So we meet on the 11th and he's coming up here on the 18th.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kay. We appreciate that. And I thank you. Is there anything further in your report?
No, but let me just encapsulate what she said. Imagine $13 million a year for 3 years with 7 years to spend it for possible diesel replacement, air quality, maybe alternative fuel things. So if any organization in here or community receive funds from CMAQ, that was usually about $2 million a year. This is 13 and it's over the whole state. So think big and get your list ready and get behind me.
My first correspondence was from Detroit, Michigan, from General Motors. I'm thinking, why are you asking for Indiana money? But we'll see.
But that concludes my report. Thank you.
I thank you. The next matter before us is the Technical Planning Committee report and business. Commissioner Brietzke, sir.
The Technical Planning Committee met on December 5th, and staff gave an update to the application for the Tiger Grant for the Marquette Greenway that you just heard, a more comprehensive presentation today. We're cautiously optimistic they'll get the grant, but if they don't, they'll reapply next spring. The staff also presented a short video on year-round use of walkways to trails. This was based in Canada, so they called these walkways breezeways, where people could actually skate. Not practical around here. I suggested maybe cross-country skiing for some of the communities, and I was informed that Hammond is planning on doing exactly that. So congratulations, making a bigger bang for the buck for these trails. Stephen Sesteric will report on the public comment report for fiscal year 2018 to 2021 for the Transportation Improvement Program. That's found on page 27.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
As Commissioner Brietzke said, on page 27 of your agenda packet, there is a very brief public comment report for amendments 5, 6, and 7 to the 2018-2021 Transportation Improvement Program. The amendments only required a 7-day public comment period per our public participation plan. The amendments were made available on NERC.org, and the comment period went from November 29th through December 5th. No comments were received during that time. So we don't need any action, just to make you aware and let you know that that was the result of the public comment period. Any questions? All right, thank you.
There are 3 actions for consideration today. Resolution 17-23, the 5th amendment to fiscal year 2018 to 2021 Transportation Improvement Program is found on pages 28 to 31. Charles Bradsky will explain this action.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Looking at amendment number 5, the action, several of these are administrative modifications. So, starting out, 1702281 LaPorte, City of LaPorte. This is a correction of the amount of fixed reward. Same with 1702282, fix the corrected amount of the award. LaCrosse has an increase for does number 1601922, an increase of $20,000 for their construction of sidewalks. 1400774 LaPorte County is increasing their funding for their award for their CEA ADA sidewalks in Hannah and Rolling Prairie. 1601869 Michigan City Singing Sands Trail added a phase. This is not an administrative modification, this is an amendment. And this is CMAQ money. This is adding a phase, BE phase. 1702276 DNR recreational trails. This is adding a project. 1383364 Porter County. This is changing a year. This is, again, another administrative modification. Below that, there is a clerical error, so it should be 1601164 for Hammond. Fix the corrected amount. This is another administrative modification. Again, that DES number is incorrect. 1383364 should be 1601164 for Hammond. LaPorte, again, City of LaPorte, 1500422. Sidewalks near Hanley Elementary School has moved out a year. This is administrative modification. And there is also another clerical error on this one. This is not local bridge funds. This is state block grant 2 funds. And then 0301165 for Michigan City. Singing Sands Trail Phase 1, increasing the award on that one. That's it on number 5.
Any questions or comments for Charles? Seeing none, the Technical Planning Committee recommends adoption of Resolution 1723 with the corrections that Charles pointed out.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded to adopt resolution number 17-23 as the 5th amendment to the Transportation Improvement Program Plan. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. As many as in favor of adoption signify by saying aye. Aye. As many as opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion passes. Resolution 17-23 is adopted.
Now we'll move on to Resolution 1724, the 6th amendment to the fiscal year 2018-21 schedule, found on pages 32 to 34. Charles, will you please explain?
Okay, this is amendment number 6. These are all NDOT projects. DES number 1702293, statewide funding for ISP, Indiana State Police Patrols. This is $2 million total. 1702708 is also a new project. This is HMA preventative 1.5-inch overlay on US 41 just north of US 30. And 1702743, that is CTR on I-65 between US 231 and US 30. That's it.
Does anybody have any questions, comments for Mr. Brzezinski? The Technical Planning Committee recommends adoption of Resolution 1724.
It's been moved. Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded to adopt Resolution 17-24 as the Sixth Amendment to the Transportation Improvement Plan. Is there any discussion on the motion? Sensing none, as many as in favor of adoption signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion passes. The resolution is adopted.
The final action we have is for Resolution 1725, the Seventh Amendment to the fiscal year 2018-2021 package transportation improvement program, found on pages 35 to 37. James Winters will explain this action.
Great, thank you. Some of you may have known that there was a lot of coordination between NERC and NICD about the Westlake extension and the double tracking project. We were tracking about 30 projects over the course of several months to make sure all these projects were included in the TIP. And somehow we managed to forget to include the regular line item that NICD gets for ongoing maintenance every year. So this amendment is to just make sure that NICD and our good friends there get paid and that they can do the regular maintenance that is required to make sure that the trains run on time. So we're amending in this sum of money, which is what they receive about every year, to make sure that we can move forward.
Does anybody have any questions or comments for this issue? If not, the Technical Planning Committee recommends adoption of Resolution 1725.
Moved. It's been moved. Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded to adopt Resolution 17-25, which represents the Seventh Amendment to the Transportation Improvement Program as described. Is there any discussion on the motion? Sensing none, as many as in favor signify by saying is aye. Aye. As many as opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion passes. Resolution 17-25, the Seventh Program Amendment is adopted. I thank the Commission. It's now my privilege and deep pleasure to recognize the Deputy Commissioner of the LaPorte District of the Indiana Department of Transportation, the Venerable Rick Powers. Mr. Powers?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, believe it or not, it's the first time I got to see Charles since he left us. And it's odd, so I guess I would say this, I would echo Ty's comments in that you're getting quality. And anybody that's worked with Charles and will have a chance working with Charles here will see just that. He does understand NDOT, and I think maybe more so he understands you. So I'm going to miss him. I say often to my staff, when someone leaves, we should be sad, not mad, and that's how I am. Not mad, I'm very sad. I'm sure Lindsay's even more sad, but I didn't know Lindsay was back there, so she's probably affirming. But congratulations, Charles, and again, I'm sure all of you will enjoy working with him. Beyond that, it's obvious that it's like I look out and see winter, and I see it's like squirrel. It's snow flying somewhere in the port. We have had several events, mostly to our east around South Bend, Plymouth area, just we get the lakes kicked in and it is what it is, and then we get what we get here sometimes. But we have been having crews working 12, 16-hour shifts, 24 hours a day, and it seems days are starting to run together, so it's been an event. We are in winter, so I just wanted to let everybody know that. Pretty much everything else you're seeing, the maintenance of traffic barrels that are still out, they're going to stay out. They're for projects that are going to move through the season and go into spring. So we have our plows dodging barrels, and you're going to see some barrels with wind and the things that happen in northwest Indiana. So keep that in mind. We are going to move on dutifully as we can, and we'll get that done. And then I seem to continue to report that we cannot seem to find the individual or individuals that want to take wire from our lighting system. So we stay at it. We're working with state police, local authorities, media, anybody who will listen, and replacing it with less precious metal materials, which is more bulky, but trying to get there just to get an idea as to what we can do to stop it. That being said, that really concludes anything I would have for you. I hope everybody has a great Christmas.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I do have a comment. The engineers were all sent a letter from the state asking for any feedback on the LPA program. That's a program that directs all your funding and the cooperation with the Fed. That comment period, I think, is up in about a month. They're rewriting the certification or recertification for your ERCs or your employees of responsible charge. So all this continuing education will start early next year, be on a new basis. So I'm going to bring that up.
Yes, please.
Rick, one of the concerns I have, and maybe you covered it, but this summer I spent quite a bit of time in South Lake County looking at how rapidly it's growing. I watched that in the 70s in Schaumburg, as a liaison to NASA in the 80s. I watched it in Houston. It is growing very rapidly. I happen to have my home up for sale, which is not in Lake County, and a doctor looked at it and said why it's so cheap from Chicago. I am really concerned, and I've had discussions with the Chief of Staff at INDOT about what should we be doing to stay ahead of this, because many of those people work in Chicago, and US 41 will only take so much. So I wonder, Mr. Chairman, if at some meeting we would be able to get both NERC and INDOT to just show us their plan. As I was railing on the Chief of Staff, he said, well, wait a minute, we can't do much unless NERC is on board. So I think that population is growing rapidly, population is shifting, and our corridors to the north are limited. So if we could get the entire board to have an understanding of where we're at and where we're going and where it fits in the 5-year plan, which already has projects listed, help with everyone.
I thank the Commissioner. I see that the Executive Director is taking notes, so I think that serves to, he's memorializing a request that will be as good as an instruction, and I thank the Commissioner's comment. We thank you, Commissioner, as well. It's now the part of the agenda for announcements. Good of the order. Mr. Carpenter, where are you?
I'm down here today.
How are you, or do you have something you want to share today?
About 3 things. First of all, Town of Cedar Lake hired a new police chief. He started out in Highland, and then he went to work for the feds. He came in, our former chief that retired, he came in and took a $5,000 a year pay cut. And we do not have to pay his health insurance. So he is saving the town of Cedar Lake money, and I am pleased to have Dave Colson as our chief of police in Cedar Lake. Second of all, I like the fact that we have cups here instead of styrofoam, so we're not putting stuff into landfills. Mary and I serve on Lake County Solid Waste, so we like to see that kind of stuff. And last of all, on behalf of myself, I'd like to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas, and hopefully all communities have a Happy New Year.
Thank you, Commissioner. I know that we sing. I saw that Commissioner Kirkham had his hand up, and I'll come right over to Ms. Betts. Commissioner Kirkham.
Just for the awareness of most of the commission, it doesn't really involve them. Our county coroner is just his budget's being blown out because of the cost of autopsies. And I've talked to Lake County, and I'd like to talk to representatives of Porter County, if possibly we can come together and find a facility that will do the autopsies and give us a price break of some kind, because it's just, he's continually having to come back and increase his budget because of the number of deaths. A lot of them are from ODs, and it's a problem, and we're hoping that we can find a facility that we can come together as a group, and they could offer us a discount for doing autopsies. Because actually some counties are having to send them to like St. Louis to have them done. So this is just something we'd like to bring up county-wide.
It's as much high economics as I'm trained in. I tell you that it's a lesson as old as my Sunday school class, that sharing is always better. I take your point. Thank you. Commissioner Babst.
That was actually a good segue into my comment. I know this isn't a social services group, but I just wanted to bring to everybody's attention a group called the Court Appointed Special Advocates, CASA. It's a volunteer group network that's located in each of your counties. We serve children that are, for the most part, removed from their homes because of neglect and abuse. Right now, the majority of those are because of drug abuse, and of those, the majority of them are because of opioids. So it's exploding in all our communities, and if you know someone that would be interested in volunteering, please put their name forward. If you don't know about the CASA program in your counties, I would really encourage you to find out about them.
I could certainly endorse that if I could just for a minute. My son is a foster parent whose parent overdosed and died, and he's taking care of them. So it's everywhere.
It's every day.
Commissioner.
First off, I wanted to thank Ty, and I've recently become active in one region, and I've been active in NERC since I've been mayor, so 14 years. And I know a lot about both organizations, and to me, the more I got to know Ms. Conradi, I was always like, why don't you work closer with NERC, and why doesn't NERC work closer to you? You're really pushing the same product, which is Northwest Indiana. And I'm really encouraged that Ty has taken up this mantle, and I want to thank him and encourage him to keep moving forward, because it just makes a lot of sense, in my opinion, that one region and NERC are pushing the same product, so they should be working closer together. A. B, I'm also a creature of habit. I've been going to NERC meetings for 14 years, and I know I've missed one or two, but I noticed we did public comment at the beginning of the meeting, which, if we are going to do public comment, there's a lot of people around the table that travel from Indianapolis, or that come from a lot, far and wide, and have very busy schedules. And I'm all about public comment. I love criticism and comment, and that's part of the American process. But if we are going to have public comment at the beginning of the meeting, I think there should be strict time limits. Because we could run into a situation where maybe somebody from the public wants to filibuster and talk and talk and talk and delay important people that have places to be. No offense, and I'm not talking about myself. I'll sit here for 3 hours if it takes it. But I just think that if we are going to do public comment at the beginning of the meeting, that's a nod to the public. And I think that we have to have strict requirements that you have 3 minutes max. And once they hit that number, in all respect to everybody sitting around the table, we should move on to the next item. So, anyway, thank you. Merry Christmas.
Right. Commissioner, I thank you. Our sheet actually notes that as an informal policy, we have a 3-minute rule. And I was watching. Mr. Nowacki could see my anxiety, and he tried to wrap up for me. Thank you for that.
How long did I go?
4. It wasn't.
We've had longer, Jim. No.
We have had one, that is correct. And we take your point. One of the things I hope is that will be a settled matter. The current enrolled draft of the proto-penultimate rules, because technically we're allowed to do rules, it says in the statute, but there are bylaws. It says it'll be at the end again. And so that's an issue that needs to be taken up by the full commission when those bylaws are ripe for your consideration. But I take your point, and I always find what you have to say instructive, and I thank you for that.
Mr. Chairman, we made an adjustment on that sign-in sheet some years ago.
Yes.
For obvious other reasons, and there are other instructions on the top of the sheet. So I think there is adequate warning there, but I do agree with the mayor's point. Thank you.
Thank you. I was just going to say that same thing. There actually was a resolution that the NERC board had adopted for guidelines for public comment, which includes this time limit. So we put it right on the sheet so that when folks sign up.
When's the decision making put at the beginning? I must have missed that meeting because.
I have to tell you that that's an interesting question. I feel like you do about it, Commissioner. Apparently, we have, according to our attorney, a principle called chairman's rules. And I just sort of yield to whatever they prepare.
Okay.
Our new bylaws will actually say who does the agenda and what the rules are. Yes.
I can say
It's been tried both ways, by the way.
I understand both ways.
I had moved it to the end.
Yeah,
and
that's what I'm used to.
It's gone, frankly, if I could, just as chairs have changed, different years, different thoughts about that, and like you said, there's...
So it's Michael's fault? Is that...
Yes. And I want it to be the commission's fault. That's why I went to the rules. Commissioner Schmidt.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if this is the proper board, but I wanted to see if there was a comment from NERC on this, on the ruling that was just recently on the big box ruling for the big box stores downstate, which that definitely can affect my town very much in Sherrill, and the ruling actually that went in effect was in Maryville on the tax structure of one of the lawsuits down at the tax board. I don't know if there's anything that this board can do or make a comment about that. And Michael, you probably know a lot about it.
Yes.
Is there any comment that you have on that?
Thank God I'm in Highland. Seriously, they haven't even implemented ours, and it only represents 2 million. And our particular Myers isn't located in an allocation area where we've got bond debt from a TIF that we have to worry about. Maryville is not so lucky. Maryville's got most of theirs in a tax increment finance area. Their allocation area actually is going to be not, I happen to know this as a fact, they have a bond payment due that they cannot make because of that rule. So that law's been tweaked now in 2 different legislatures, and maybe we can get it right another time. It is what it is.
And I have talked to my legislator, Mr. Slager, and maybe Mr. Soliday can comment on. It doesn't seem like that our legislators have been able to get a grip on it. I personally think it's like one of the most ridiculous rulings I've ever seen. And I'll give you an example. Down in St. John, they have an empty Kmart building that's been sitting there for 11 years empty. The store across the street, Target, is one of the most money-making stores that Target has across the street. And Target is going to ask to have their tax rated the same as that building over there at Kmart that's sitting empty when the town of St. John, and I'm just using them example, I could give you all the examples in Sherwood too, but the town of St. John supports that store, they police it, they answer all the calls, the fire department, the public works. I mean, there's a lot more to a running store that's making $1 million a month. Their income is $1 million a month, and they want their tax structure the same as a store that's been sitting empty for 11 years.
Commissioner Schmidt, I believe the idiom appropriate to what you've said is you're preaching to the choir.
Right.
I hear you. I feel as you do.
I just think...
But it is the law, and they're allowed to utilize the law in their benefit. Is there any other, I beg the Commissioner's pardon, is there any other comment?
I would like...
Commissioner Larson.
Just for the good of the community, I don't know if you guys have been paying attention or not, but Porter County is finally working together, and we've passed $50 million in bonds in the last 2 council meetings. So we'll be investing quite a bit of money in our local community. We'll see some improvements in infrastructure, bridge work, and facilities. We're going to finally start taking care of some of our facilities, thanks to Commissioner Biggs and the approval of the commissioners all working together. So I just wanted to bring that up for the unity.
I always thought well of Porter County. I didn't know that there was an issue till you shared it, but I'm so glad it's been fixed, and you can share that with us.
Well, really quick, wasn't out in front.
I see. Commissioner Emerson.
Okay, very quickly, Lake County Plan Commission's in the middle of their comprehensive plan update for the unincorporated areas. I want to thank NERC for all their help in getting the data, and all your studies have helped so much. It would be almost impossible to do it on our budget without the help from you guys. So if anybody has any comments on the unincorporated areas in Lake County, how they should develop, Representative Soliday's point's well taken. We're looking at that. The west side there is just expanding, it's blowing up so quickly. We have to update our plan. So that's what we're doing now. It's been 20 years since we've done it. Go to lakecountyplan.org to comment yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Emerson. On behalf of NERC, I believe you thanked NERC at the beginning. You're welcome.
Thank you.
To do. Is there anything further?
I would like to comment. Tom mentioned the assessment on big boxes. 16 Plus will be meeting in the town of Sherrville tomorrow at 9 o'clock. So any Lake County municipalities, everybody's always invited, and we have been discussing that in previous meetings. I know we've got Spiro Batastatis there tomorrow, but we need to bring that up in our meeting to try and re-energize that.
Yes, the executive director would like to take a moment of privilege to speak to the matter of the January meetings.
Thank you. The next meeting is on January 18th. Thank you all for making the effort to come today, especially in the snow and all. Really appreciate your presence here. Just as a reminder, the full commission meets quarterly, so you are always welcome and encouraged to attend if you are not on the executive board, all the meetings of NERC, which does meet monthly, and many of you do, which is phenomenal. So thank you for your participation. But there are just a few things that the full commission has to do that the executive board cannot do. One of those was the budget, so thank you for making the quorum today. Another one of those is the election of officers. So as Mr. Griffin said, the nominating committee is meeting, but in January we need a full quorum to be able to elect the new officers. So if you could please make sure you have January 18th on your calendar, and hopefully the weather will cooperate there too. So we'll look forward to seeing you then. And I just wanted to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and a Happy New Year.
And I'm actually supposed to visit Jordan and Israel beginning the 4th of January. I hope I'm back in time, so I hope the quorum isn't because of me. That's just an awkward situation for me. I just want to say to everyone as well, in the language of my own faith tradition, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and whatever the season is for you and however you observe it in your own transcendent way, I hope it brings you joy and the blessings appropriate to that faith tradition. There being nothing further for us, I wish you traveling mercies, Happy New Year, and we are adjourned.